Can't bow down to the mob cause I'm too real. I can't be controlled cause I don't need a deal. They say you going way too far, you need to chill. Sorry, I don't really care about how you feel, ayy. I can't bow down to the mob cause I'm too real. I can't be controlled cause I don't need a deal. They say you going way too far, you need to chill, ayy. Sorry, I don't really care about how you feel.
I resurfaced on purpose, I'm Houdini. Now I ain't going nowhere like I'm Tim Pool's beanie. I got permanent sermons and words that can burn through a genie. I could perfectly search for the surface and fly like an eagle, praise Jesus.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Latino Free Minds, episode 132. And for this episode, we actually are bringing back the Know Your Candidate series. So obviously, we just had Prop 50 election yesterday, and didn't go our way. We'll talk a little bit about that, but we got to move on. We can't give up the fight. And on this episode, we are joined by Javier Lopez, who is a candidate for Congress in District 13 in California. Javier, how you doing, man?
Thank you, everybody, for having me today. I really do appreciate it. And yes, I'm running for Congress in California District 13. I am the current mayor of the city of Ceres, going on 5 years now. And I'm happy to be here today, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
How you doing, Danny?
Good. We were just talking about disappointing results from last night, but we have to shake it off and move forward. So, we're looking forward to this conversation too, Javier. We're always talking about fighters and people actually representing the will of the people.
Yeah.
So I know that that's something that you're going to do. You're going to advocate for the people, and we're real proud that a fellow Latino is doing what you're doing and has been doing what you're doing. Appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure. So tell the people a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you're currently doing, and we'll kind of just go from there.
Muchísimas gracias for having me here today. And I know there's a lot of English and Spanish speakers out there. I just want to say that, I've lived in Ceres my entire life. I've lived here since I was 5 years old. So I'm Valley through and through. I spent 20 years working as a fire technician. And in 2020, I decided to run for office. Before that, and currently still, I am a coach, and I coach football at Center Valley High School. So mayor, coach, and now running for Congress. I am a husband, and my wife, incredible woman. She supports me every single day through the good and through the bad. And I have a great support system. And we have to advocate for our community, as I've done here in the city of Ceres. And I know firsthand how that feels from someone who is worked and drove into the Bay Area every single day, understanding how important it is to put food on the table. There's families out there that are struggling, that are dealing with high gas prices. I know that we haven't seen them as high as we anticipated them to be. I know that we talked about that several months ago. And now here I am with you gentlemen, and the big discussion, I believe, is going to be Proposition 50.
Yeah, and so you're running for District 13.
That's correct.
Do you, do you know how much affected your district will be now, as of Prop 50 passing? Like, how is that going to shake out now?
Well, if anybody who has been following this story on Proposition 50 for Central Valley, and that's District 13, we have now lost Fresno and Madera, and we've also increased a little bit of Stockton. This district is wildly huge, and I know that it will affect community members when it comes to representation, but we have to remember that local mayors like myself are dealing with the lack of representation because small cities sometimes don't get the funding that they deserve. And being someone as a mayor who's advocated in Washington and Sacramento, I understand firsthand those types of issues. We will be affected in such a way where I think that now the Central Valley will be opened up to maybe other several candidates who are going to be running in this district. I'm sure that's going to happen as well. Currently, we do have an incumbent who, some of the first decisions that he made was to support and allow men and women's sports. That's not the time representation that we need in the Central Valley. I think that we need to advocate for fairness, and as a coach, that's not something that I would support.
No, that's awesome. Now, when you say that small cities, um, it's hard for them to get federal funding. So how do the small cities get some of that funding? What do they rely on if they can't rely on federal funding like the bigger cities can? What do they have to do?
Well, let's take for example Lodi. They just got split three ways, right?
Mhm.
And I was, depending on the direction that that city goes, they will have to advocate for three different representatives, and maybe that will be more difficult because they have to submit requests to those three different representatives for Congress. As an example,
Okay.
either that's going to be easy or difficult, or maybe they'll have three separate opportunities. Advocating for your community is submitting requests to these congressmen and the state, and hoping that you get chosen. There is a specific process. The size of your city is important. You have to qualify for certain types of funding. So these small cities like myself, we really do depend on state and federal funds, as we don't have huge budgets like larger cities. So it's something that we need to take into consideration, as now they're being affected here in this district in this change.
Yeah.
Mm.
So just a follow-up question to that is, what would you say gets affected the most? Because as you're explaining that, in my mind, police department, fire departments, and those type of departments, I assume that they're the ones that end up suffering because of the lack of funding. Would that be accurate to say?
So I'll give you another example. As the mayor of Ceres, we went and advocated for specific grants and specific funding that we were looking for. One on a smaller scale, we were advocating for some funding for the American Legion Hall here in the city of Ceres. We made a request during Congressman John Duarte's term, and then also during Adam Gray's term, and we did not receive the funding. So it's not guaranteed. If you take in consideration how many cities are making requests,
Mm,
there has to be a consensus or a priority. And if I were in that position, from a standpoint coming from me, the things that I would be looking for would be projects that are funding for infrastructure, water. The stringent policies that we have in the state of California are affecting many farmers in our community. Also, specific funding for programs that help those that are seeking job opportunities. And those are just an example of the type of things that I would be looking for these companies. Excuse me, companies for these cities that are looking to submit. So I think that there's so many different factors, but having the right person to make the right decision is important, because those priorities are going to have to depend on what they're looking for, if that makes any sense. Every single congressman is going to be different. I know the way that I want to represent the community is to try to do the best that I can, especially with the experience that I have as being mayor for the last 5 years, and understanding some of the issues that we have and that we need to resolve. And yes, law enforcement can and will be an opportunity. But sometimes there's other avenues besides just going to your congressman. You can go to the Department of Justice for funding, but it just all depends if there's available funding.
Mm. Yeah, no, and I think that's kind of what you were kind of saying right now is with candidates or people in Congress, a lot of them, it feels like they don't represent their communities as much as they represent their party. Um, and in a sense, you could apply that to all sides, I guess. But if you said Duarte was the incumbent,
No, no, Adam Gray is incumbent, but
Gray.
obviously Duarte was there before. Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. Um,
Yes.
so as far as Gray, sorry, I almost said the wrong name again. Gray, like, how would you critique him, or what would you say about him that maybe could be better for your community, for your district?
I think in all fairness to the congressman, as I'm the type of mayor that makes sure that I'm about facts. Is that I've been hearing through the grapevines that his lack of communication and lack of availability is his biggest issue. And myself as a local mayor, I know how important it is. And 24/7, I'm being reached out to. I don't have a large staff that helps me um, with scheduling or anything of those sorts, but I know how important it is to communicate to the members of our community who want to speak to me and try to get issues resolved. I think that the difference maybe between me and him would be that I'm going to make myself more available and to make sure that our team priorities are such. And I think that's just some of the rumbles that I've been hearing. Um, and I want to make sure that the constituents and the citizens understand that as I as I have as a mayor, uh, I will be able to do the same thing as I will be doing if I get elected in Congress, and that will be to making myself available.
Hmm. Did you have a follow up, Danny? Or
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking a lot about politicians, you know, keep, keeping the will of the people, and in lobby. More than anything, this is what my thoughts have been. And yesterday is a good example of that. Is that um, we have representation, right? But I'm starting to believe, or not starting to believe, but we can concentrate on all of the concerns that we might have, but they really don't get addressed because at the root cause of it, it's the lobbyists that we have to worry about because it's it's the pay to play, and at the end of it, our representation isn't uh, doesn't have the will of the people's in the best interest, and they're just doing what the lobbyists want. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, what's your experience in seeing that, and how are you going to combat that?
I think what you're referencing to is career politicians, right?
Yeah,
Those who
basically.
are using this position to make a living, and also when you have priorities that are coming from the party, I think that either you're going to be the one who is loyal to the people of the Central Valley, who has thick skin, and who believes in the same values as the folks here in the Central Valley, and not submit to pressure. I think that when that day comes, we'll take it one step at a time. But I can give you from tell you from personal experience here in the city of Ceres. I always tell everybody that just because you're the loudest person in the room doesn't mean you're not the only person in the room. And there's people who communicate with me in various different forms, whether it's direct email, phone call, direct messages on Instagram, or in that I run into in the public that are expressing some of their concerns, and also expressing how much they are proud at what we have accomplished here in the community. So you have to take that as a balance. But I can see exactly where you're coming from. I most definitely have met some elected officials who, I am per se cautious about. But I think that sometimes, even being in this position for a very, very long time, I think that sometimes they're conditioned and they're complacent. Not to point fingers or anything, but I just it's an overall review. But also, being a mayor for 5 years gives me the ability to navigate that and understanding what the needs are for our community because I've lived it. And like I said, I spent 20 years working in the Bay Area as a fire technician. I struggled. I understood what it took to make a decision whether I'm putting in gas or I'm putting food on the table. Those decisions are being made every single day by citizens here in the Central Valley, and we all know that the Central Valley income is not the largest, so they do have to make those decisions every single day.
Hmm. Yeah, no, and I think one of the things you said um, is for representatives. I think they should be, you know, accessible, or you should be able to communicate with them um, a little easier than some. And a lot of people don't know that, like you said, with Instagram. Twitter, whatever, you know, you can easily reach out to your representative, and for the most part, they should be able to see your message. Hopefully they respond. But I think, when we have representatives that don't communicate, aren't responding to the people that they're representing, that's where that kind of trust gets lost, right? That's where, again, like I had said earlier, people then start to believe, okay, this person's just representing their party and not the the district that they're supposed to represent. And I think that's what we see in our current government, right? Again, both sides, you see people that are just really partisan. um and I guess I kind of get it, but also it gets us nowhere. um I don't know, what do you think about that? Like
What
the
you,
just the extreme partisanship where kind of like Prop 50, right?
yeah.
Prop 50 California is extremely Democrat already with our representation in Congress. Taking five of those, well, that's the goal. Take five of those seats and give more Democrat seats. And it's like, where's the representation for the rest of California, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of I guess what I'm kind of alluding to. So, what do you think of that?
Well, I'll start off by saying that I couldn't have not gotten anything accomplished in my community if I was one sided. I have friends on the other side as well, good friends that are Democrats that have the same understanding and moving forward their cities as I want to. So you can't walk into this with the expectation that you're only going to be on one side and you're not going to communicate across the aisle. There has to be a trust. So, I have a clear message to um, other any Democrats living in the Central Valley that when they see me, come up to me and talk to me, because I will tell you right now, it's about everyone. It's not just one specific person. For example, in the city of Ceres, we don't create policies just for one individual person. We create them for everyone. So it doesn't make a difference whether you're Latino, whether you're African American, whether you're Caucasian, or whether you're Democrat, Republican, or what about the nonpartisan? What about those who
Mhm.
are registered to vote and don't really care about politics, right? They would rather talk about what's happening with their kids' game that's happening on Saturday. Those are the people that we need to fight for as well. We need to have somebody in Congress who's going to fight not only for the values that we have, family, God, and the love for this country, but I believe that everybody has an opportunity to be heard. And going back to your original question about communication, yes, there's a lot of folks out there who are afraid to reach out. It doesn't matter if it's a small issue or a larger issue. I just think that the best thing that people could do is to always email if you want to be formal. And I understand that there's a lot of folks that will go to social media. They will make a post and drop comments. I assure you that we are watching and that we care about your comments. And it doesn't make a difference if you're being as critical as you can be, to an elected official like myself. I never delete the comments. I think that it's important for people to be heard. And surprisingly enough, I know that there has been several people who've been very surprised for me to respond to them in email, and understanding that they also say, "I'm sorry for wasting your time, but you're not wasting my time." I remember when before I even ran for office, I was the same person who felt like I had no voice at the table, and that's one of the reasons why I ran for office in 2020 during the pandemic. So I think that you're right on the money when it comes to that. It doesn't make a difference, and obviously people know that I'm a Republican. People know that I'm a conservative, but I'm also Latino. I come from a very deep cultural background that goes goes back to Jalisco, Mexico, and I love our community, and I think that we need to make sure that we represent everyone the way that they should be represented when they're not looking, when they're not seeing the work that we're doing. I don't need a pat on the shoulder. I'm doing this because I care. I'm doing this because I've realized that there is a bigger calling, and if I get that opportunity to be the next congressman in California District 13, I will do everything in my power to fight for every single person from the Central Valley and take the criticism at the same time.
Yeah, that accountability piece, and being available, and I think what you're bringing up right now is, reaching across the aisle, that bipartisanship, and being able to have those conversations. It's something that I think everybody needs to adjust and start doing, because the rhetoric back and forth is clearly not working. So at some point we have to, start having these type of conversations, whether you're left, right, red, blue, or whatever the case may be. So, I commend you for that, because I feel like that's something that more people need to do. So, um, we would definitely look forward, to having someone like that representing us. Um, and I think it'll have a lot more success, with that approach.
Hmm.
Especially here in the Central Valley, gentlemen. When you guys know it, it's although yes, in the last election it was 5 plus Trump, and yes, there is a goal that we turned Stanislaus County red, but that doesn't mean that we don't care about everybody else.
Hmm.
We just want to make sure that we have the same representation as everybody else, right?
Hmm.
So you're absolutely right. I mean, yes, don't misconstrued, uh, the party that I represent and where I'm from the moral values and how I will represent you in Congress. And like I said, I'm always open to debate. I'm always open to conversations about issues. You'll probably find that we believe in similar things. The only thing that I probably won't support is any liberal left policies or anything of this sorts,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean that I don't care about what your thoughts are. And look at the demographics in the city of Ceres. I mean, a high percentage of Latino community. I think we're over 65%. We're largely a Democratic city. We were for the longest time a majority conservative Republican council, and we still fought for every single person in the city of Ceres. That will be no different than me being in Congress and fighting for the community. And it's not just the Central Valley, as we all well know; it's also the entire nation, and we owe that to the people.
Yeah, no, and I think that's two things. Two things. The first is, from day one, we've tried to send a message out to people that they shouldn't focus on the letter that's next to the name, right? When they go vote, which a lot of people do. Who's a Democrat? Who's a Republican? And they kind of base it off of that, right? We're trying to get people away from that. That's why we do these know your candidates, right? So you know, hopefully it's not just an echo chamber listening. You got people that are undecided or whatnot tuning
Right.
in and,
Yeah.
hearing what you got to say and, really take into consideration the candidates that are on the ballot. So, that's one thing. And then the second thing, to kind of the point that you guys are making is, that's why, like, the California legislature, for example, like, I wish as a group, even though it's so majority Democrat, I wish
Right.
as a group they were able to acknowledge, look, we represent everybody, this entire state. What we do affects everybody in this state. And, I guess when you have unchecked power, I guess you don't have to consider everybody. But, in a perfect world or whatever you want to call it, I wish they would just, hey, we our decisions are going to affect everybody. And like you said, even when you get into Congress and you're making decisions, now you're affecting the entire nation. So, those are things that hopefully, as representatives, they can kind of always keep that in mind. And then as voters, we can always keep in mind that we shouldn't just be looking for the party affiliation. We should actually get to know the candidate and who's best going to represent us once they get elected, because that's what it's all about.
Oh yeah, I do most definitely do agree. The people should always remember that they're the ones who are the decision makers. You vote people in, you vote people out, and pay attention to what your representatives are doing, and also pay attention to those who are incoming as well, those who are trying to have an opportunity to represent your community and do your research. So I think this is only. I mean, I've done several interviews throughout the year as I running for Congress, and I try to stay out there as much as possible because I think that it's important for the people to see that I'm engaging with them. And if you ever do see me anywhere you go, I think I'm hard to miss. a Latino man, bald and with a beard, but also also understand that I'm also a people person, right? Yes, I am an elected, but I'm also a person,
Yeah.
and I deal with the same things that everybody else deals with. And I'm always open to, like I said, and I'll repeat it again and again. I'm always open to communication and also open to solutions because without solutions and communication, we cannot move this country forward. And we all know that there's obviously bigger issues that need to be addressed. And I think that I want to be a part of that decision making. And my hope is that everybody will see that. And for those, like I said, who are on the fence, uh, you can reach out to me and javierforcongress.com. You can directly message me and open for dialogue.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, with the experience that you have, is listening to you speak as a mayor. You said it's going to be 5 years now.
Yeah.
Uh, you've been mayor for series. You're right. With that experience, it gives you insights into that next level on the decisions that you would be making and how it would be impacting people. And one of the things that always comes to mind, and one of the biggest debate amongst Latinos, it doesn't matter if you're first generation, second, third, or fourth, or fifth, whatever the case may be, is the border situation and sanctuary cities. Everybody's got their different versions of what it what they believe to understand what that means. Um, and one of the things that we try to communicate is that you know when laws need to be enforced, you can't pick and choose which ones you're going to enforce and which ones you aren't going to enforce. And I know that this is a very sensitive subject, but what is your position with that as far as sanctuary cities? Because the way that we understand it is that local law enforcement isn't working with agencies like federal agencies like ICE, so that they can detain illegal immigrants that are criminals when they're in the local jails and whatnot. That's why they're having to go out to you know places where they work or in general. So what's your position on that?
Well, let's start off. For the longest time, we've been told over and over again that immigration reform was an issue and topic that many presidents and government would resolve. As long as
Mhm.
I've been told, right since I was 18, they've kicked the can down the road so many different times, promises, and it doesn't seem as if there's any real interest. And I don't know if it's just another way for them to hold off and use it as a platform. But I think
Mhm.
immigration reform is important. Immigration reform needs to happen, and as we need to understand that immigration reform is a very very sensitive topic, but also it is not an easy one to resolve as well. But we also have to make sure that we understand that we have a strong border and that we have the ability to fight off the cartel and make sure that we stop sex trafficking, all those things that are happening and the drug trafficking that's coming into our country. And we've seen that change in the almost in the last year. Now, what the saddest part is too, as well, is let's talk about what we're not talking about. In Mexico, just last week, we had a mayor that was cold-bloodedly murdered in Michoacan, and he may not be an American, but he comes from Latino roots. He was fighting against the cartel that he was trying to make sure that his citizens were safe, and now that man is dead. If
Yeah.
that were to happen in the United States, could you imagine the uproar?
Yeah.
Um, and I won't get too much into Mexican politics, as I do pay attention a lot to what's happening in Mexico. But we need to make sure that we follow the laws that are in place now, but also be open to making these decisions that will resolve the immigration reform issue. And we'll get a little bit into the farm laborers, right? So there has to be a pathway to citizenship. We also have been very, very open in allowing a lot of people come into the United States through the legal system. The
Mhm.
United States does that every single year. Everybody wants the American dream. My
Mhm.
parents did it. If it wasn't for my mom and dad becoming American citizens and living here in the city of Ceres, I wouldn't be the mayor.
Mhm.
First generation Latino here in Ceres. But this is something that I know that although as in a position as mayor, it's not really something that I have control over. But I have been communicating and addressing this to senators and spoke to a lot of Latinos up and down California. And we even wrote a letter to Senator Padilla, and we were talking about the issues of asylum versus those who've been waiting 20 years to become citizens, and how there is quite an unfairness to that. So I think that that would be something that I could address. What I won't support is a system that overcharges those who are trying to come into this country
Yeah.
via kind of fees, right? But we need to take in consideration an option that could possibly fund such as uh, the pathway to citizenship without affecting taxpayers, because I think Americans respectfully uh, will want that to be a non-issue. They don't want to have to be paying for it. I think
Yeah.
that respectfully, I understand that, but we need to address that issue. The Central Valley feeds the world.
Yeah.
Without farmers, without farm laborers, we won't have that, and that is the truth. So I think that like I said, we'll go back and say that I believe in strong borders. I believe in law enforcement as I supported it in the city of Ceres, but we have to be open for change, and I'm willing to sit at the table and discuss that with any of my former colleagues that are interested in doing so. Um, I, I would say that my hopes that it would happen during and under this administration. And going back to your original question about sanctuary cities, the city of Ceres and the majority of cities and no cities in Stanislaus County are sanctuary cities. Um, you haven't seen ICE agents in our areas, but you also have to take consideration there's a case by case. And we've seen in some cases, and I look at this from a different perspective than maybe you two. I don't jump to conclusion because I haven't seen all the facts. But if there's any Americans who have been falsely accused, who have been taken into custody, they're American, so they're allowed to do justice that they deserve, and if they need to address that, then they should. But you have to understand that there is people out there who are criminals, and I don't think that we should have them in our community. We already have a big enough issue with gangs as we have here in the Central Valley. We don't need to add to that. And so I support the community, and I think that we need to find a solution. No person better than someone who understands it, like myself, who not only will make the decisions based on facts and logic, but also understand how important it is to our community. I talk to Latinos who are Republicans and Democrats, and they'll say the same thing. We need to fix this issue. You also need to understand that as Latinos, we're the fastest growing population in the United States.
Yeah. Growing up as a kid, we were told that you're the minority, but you're going to be the majority pretty soon, and I think we're getting to that point now, that we're at this stage in our lives. But
With fairness too, right? Because as an elected official, I love and respect people, and everybody deserves the opportunity for freedom. Everybody deserves an opportunity for prosperity, to live, like I said, the American dream, and we need to protect those people. We need to protect Americans.
yeah.
Hmm.
So when you say you're having these conversations and opening up this dialogue with different politicians, how close do you think we are to, like, nationally having that dialogue, like a real serious dialogue about that? Because what you're talking about is what we all want. That's what really solves the root problem here.
Hmm.
Right. Do I believe that we're closer than we would want to be? No, I don't believe that. Do we need people in there who have the grit and the desire and the willing to fight for immigration reform? Yes, we do need people like that. I'm one of those people. We need to have more people like that. But also taking consideration of there's a lot of congressmen and senators who don't live in the border off the border, right? So maybe their priorities are different. I'm not saying that they are indifferent. So how close are we? Only time will tell. My hope is that it will happen under this administration. I know that during the Biden administration, 4 years, there was an opportunity, but we saw the opposite. right? We saw in Mexico, we
Hmm.
saw caravans coming into Mexico from southern states, and they were struggling with the influx of immigration coming into their country, and it was it was out of control. And we said it made a lot of people nervous. We understand that there's a lot of people out there who are fleeing these countries for various reasons, but we have to be practical. We can't just allow anybody to come in. For example, if we were to have, we couldn't just leave our doors open and allow anybody to move into our homes. Uh, we need to be vetted. But there is a lot of people out there in the world who really do believe in the American dream, and I understand why they want to come here.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
understand we need to resolve that issue, and the only way that's going to happen is if obviously we have the majority in the House and the Senate for someone to step up with the right solution, and we can fix this issue once and for all. It will not be easy. I guarantee you that. There's a lot of folks out there that don't understand the legalities behind all of this, and it's not as cut and dry as you may think it is. Just let them
Hmm.
in. We can't just let anybody in, but
Hmm.
we have to give people opportunities. As we very well know that there's different segments to these different types of visas, and there is no pathway to citizenship through those visas. So that's something that we need to address. But there is obviously people that are becoming citizens every single day. I've seen it. Um,
Hmm.
every time that I see someone who becomes a citizen, it's a proud moment for them. And you got to give it to them, man. I mean, I'm sure that you don't know their story, right?
Yeah.
So, so I support that, but I think that we need to make sure that we have people who are interested in doing that, and whether that be Congress. I think that if I'm there, I would most definitely it'd be a priority of mine. I know that for sure.
Hmm. No, and that's true. Every year, thousands of people become citizens every year. So it's possible.
It is.
And I think kind of to what you were saying is, yeah, there's a lot of people that do want to come here for the American dream, right? They want a better life, and yeah, what we have to understand is we just can't let everybody in, though. And I think that part of how the Biden administration handled the border is the reason we're seeing the action towards it now,
Right.
because during the Biden administration, we were talking about it once on the podcast, and I believe it was towards the end of his administration, and there was either 265 or 295 people that were apprehended that were on the terror watch list.
Yeah. Mhm.
And they estimate there was 2 million gotaways. So basically, people they never made contact with, they just say,
Right.
they just see footprints on the ground. So as much as people want to come here for a better life, we have to be real. And there's a lot of people that hate America and have
Yeah.
bad intentions. And it's a the conversation is like you said, a little more difficult than it's just give them citizenship and that's it. It's there's a lot of things mixed in. It's a complicated conversation, and yeah, it has to happen. I feel like when you look at both parties, I feel like the Democrats are constantly promising that. If I listen to the Republican, I know the Republican's constantly telling me he's going to secure the border. So I think part of the problem is people keep voting for that promise that never gets completed. You know, Biden said he was going to help DACA in his first 100 days, got in office, and I don't think they ever even talked about him.
No.
So
Address.
that's things people gotta realize that they're being. I feel like people are being used for their vote. That's why it doesn't get fixed, like you were saying.
I mean, I will say that there has been a huge difference on the border,
Hmm.
and but tensions are also high in Mexico, and because we have cut off a lot of the monies from the cartel. Recently, I've heard that they are threatening American citizens
Yeah.
who are traveling to Mexico. Well, who do you think those majority of the American citizens are? Latino Americans who are going down there to visit their family. And that right there, in a sense, and like they say in Espanol, is no injusticia. It's an unjust.
Hmm.
Um, they're not making money, so they want to punish. I think that we need to understand that there's issues that are happening above and beyond our control, and we need to make sure that we do continue to secure the border. And I think the Trump administration has done that.
Hmm.
Um, we talked about you talked about DACA, right? I mean, we've been talking about that since Obama introduced it. Even when Obama introduced it, he was criticized because it wasn't a real pathway to citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take it as an act of Congress, right? I
Mm-hmm.
know that Trump did talk about it. I know that he mentioned, and don't quote me on this, whether he in the beginning said that he would address it and then never came around to it. But knowing what we know now, and for a lot of folks who don't understand that it will take an act of Congress for that issue to get resolved, you got those DACA recipients who've been here since they were young kids. They know nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
They're Americans, okay. And then you also have the other issues that we talk about on immigration reform. So if it's one step at a time, then let's take it. I think the first steps have already been made, and that is to secure the border. And we have to allow our law enforcement agencies to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
They're they see things that we don't see. You
Yeah.
know, they have seen tragedies and things that we couldn't even imagine. And yes, it's not a secret that a majority of the border patrol agents are Hispanic. They
Yeah.
do that
Mm-hmm.
job. They do that job because they care. And I've heard and seen stories. But we have to continue to support them in any which way that we can.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to change unless we address it in Congress. So and I understand. I understand the upset, the uproar, and the protest, but we won't get anywhere by violently protesting against issues.
Yeah. No.
That's
And as you were
get it.
saying that, it reminds me of Proposition 36. The people voted, for law enforcement to be able to do their job, enforce the law. And Proposition 50 cost $250 million, if not more. And all of those funds could have been allocated to Proposition 36, which
Funding.
is being underfunded, and that's a fact. And what that means is that you know law enforcement, special programs like rehabilitation programs and stuff like that are not getting funding to secure our streets. And with Proposition 36 passing, it's the actual citizens telling you that we want the laws to be enforced.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
No, I think
it,
you have a good point.
mhm,
I said you have a good point. And look at San Francisco, for example. We have a newly elected mayor in San Francisco who was in a position where the Trump administration wanted to send,
Mm-hmm.
he was, correct me if I'm wrong, the National Guard down there.
Mm-hmm.
And one phone call made the difference. Why? Because that mayor chose to communicate with the Trump administration and let him know that they have been working on the issues that they've had in San Francisco going on for 10 years. That's a place where I worked. And during the pandemic, I remember traveling there. There was no one on the freeways, and what I've seen, what was out there was the homeless were on the streets, and it looked like chaos. And now we have a mayor who, in my personal opinion, did the right thing by communicating with the Trump administration and saying, we have this under control.
yeah,
And that should really point out the intentions there. I think that their law enforcement agency there in San Francisco is doing a great job because they're allowed to do their job.
yeah. So since we're on that subject, what's your position on that? What's your take on National Guard being deployed to cities to help out, with violence or protecting federal property? What's your take on that?
Being from a small city, if I was from, let's say, for example, New York, we just got a mayor that was elected in New York that is followed by a lot of controversy, right? And already he's already pushing back, right?
Yeah,
I couldn't sit here and tell you what the crime rates are in New York. That would be lying if I did. But as a mayor, you have to be responsible enough. If you have a law enforcement agency, the president of the United States telling you, "Do you need some help?" You need to take it, especially if it's going to result in safer streets. I do truly believe it has a lot to do with the fact that most of these mayors are Democrats and they have to hold the line. That's
yeah,
what we talked about earlier, right?
yep.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
They
and
they, they can't break away.
they can't break away. Um, Now, mind you, I'll give them this much. I don't know what's happening in their cities. Okay, because from a mayor, I respect. I've gone to many other cities, and I understand the things that mayors go through. My take would be that if you have an issue, whether it's gangs, uh, trafficking, and you need that additional help from the Fed, why not?
Hmm.
There's issues out there that are larger than what small cities can handle if it is necessary. So I think that the reason behind it is that we're seeing what the community is asking for,
Mhm.
but it's being ignored, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, you live in Stockton, right?
yeah.
So in comparison to our city in Modesto and Ceres area compared to Stockton, I follow, like, for example, 209 Times, and
Hmm.
I, I see a lot of things that are happening. Just today, I heard there was a 14-year-old kid who stabbed a 60-year-old man. Um, there's been a lot of violence in that community.
Yeah,
Uh, as a large city, I would open the idea of having law enforcement help me clean up that city
yeah.
because we owe it to the citizens. Um,
Hmm.
and I think that that's a clear example of leadership in the situation of San Francisco. He said he didn't need it. I'm sure that he showed the administration he didn't need it, and that's why the Trump administration decided to pull back. That's a clear example. Maybe it's a one-off,
Mm.
but I would support that if need be.
Yeah. That's another touchy subject too, because obviously the optics of that happening is not good, and it doesn't seem to set a good precedent in the sense that another president, whether it's on the left or the right or whatever it may be, will be quick to do that again, and then we'll get used to seeing
Hmm.
troops on the American cities and stuff like that, which is not what we want. The optics aren't right, but at the end of the day, if law enforcement isn't allowed to do their job, and if they do arrest someone, and they don't get a conviction, or they don't want to the AG doesn't want to press charges or anything like that, follow through with the convictions, then what it's doing, it's just allowing people to commit more and more crime, and it keeps going unpunished. So at some point something has to be done, and the Trump administration happens to um, be aware enough and say, hey, we have to do something, or what it at what cost, the safety of the citizens. So um, I agree with what you're saying, um, but I would want my representatives in my county, my city, my district, not allow that to happen, so that it doesn't get to that point.
Hmm.
But as you can see here in the Central Valley, our law enforcement is very active. I think that's the reason why you don't see it, and
Hmm.
that's to my other point where I mentioned San Francisco.
Hmm.
Uh, you're right. The optics doesn't look good. Absolutely. You wouldn't see that in the Central Valley right now because law enforcement in the Central Valley, they're doing their job. They're active, as we can all tell uh, here in Stanislaus County, especially. So you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever traveled to Mexico, but it is normal to see the federales
Yeah.
running around with AK-47s and masks on. But that's a different country. But I
Hmm.
understand why that may intimidate people, right?
Hmm.
So you know, like I said, you're being critical about something that is important to you, and I understand that you wouldn't want to see that in our community. Well, the actions that we're taking as elected officials now determine whether or not you're going to see that, right? So
Right.
those decisions are not going to be made on the fly. The decisions that we've been making to make sure that we're tough on crime here in the Central Valley, to make sure that law enforcement is enabled to do their job, and we're supporting them, we're funding them, so that
Hmm.
there's no need for something such as to happen in the Central Valley. Um, so I think in that case, I understand the concern, but I don't foresee that happening here in Center Valley.
Yeah, no, and that's why, like I said earlier, we're trying to get people to not get so caught up in who's the Democrat, who's the Republican. It's like
Yeah, I get.
if you have a mayor that's been in or whoever, and they're not keeping your city safe, they're not doing their duty to have a good community, then yeah, vote on their record. You have something to weigh it against, right? It's not just, yeah, maybe a first time, candidate. You don't know what he's going to do, right? But if you got someone
Right,
that's been in office and the results aren't aren't what you thought they were going to be, you know, vote them out, try somebody else.
I
Um
agree.
and with the whole National Guard and all that showing up, I think the intent is what matters, right? If the intent is for public safety, then I think kind of what you were saying, then why not? You know, that's kind of how I look at it. But to Danny's point, if you got representatives or your government officials that are doing what they're supposed to be doing, you wouldn't have to get to that point. So, it goes back to us, the people, and how we vote and who we're voting for. And, are we replacing them? Are we just letting them fly by without even giving us the results that, they probably campaigned on? So I think that's one of the reasons that we want people to kind of get away from that whole thinking this party or that party, but more for results in the actual representative.
Yeah, I want to have the ability to, go to sleep at night and trust that our law enforcement agencies are doing their job, right? You and
Hmm.
us three don't have to worry about that. They're out there putting their lives on the line every single day. And I've seen it firsthand, ride-alongs. I've seen it firsthand, how important it is to make sure that we budget uh, the law enforcement agencies to do their job. And I've seen the difference here in the Central Valley versus other places. I'm fully confident that we will have that continue to happen, especially under my leadership. Especially talking about how congressmen make requests to the cities of what type of projects and funding that they are looking for. For me, that would also be a top priority.
So one thing that I wanted to ask you is,
Yeah.
what do you think Congress currently is failing on, and what would you do differently?
Well, let's talk about an actual issue that is happening now,
Okay.
and I think this is my opinion. I wouldn't say that the shutdown is Congress's fault. I know that this is a continued resolution. Um, at this point, we have federal officers are not being paid. We have members of our community who are um, used to getting those SNAP benefits, right?
Hmm.
Um, that's not something that my family ever depended on, but understanding that there is people out there who are dependent on that. The fact that we've gone this long is an issue. Okay, so when we talk about the failures, let's just talk about the government as a whole, both the House and the Senate. This issue should have not even been an issue. We should have passed a continued resolution, um, because the problem is that right now in Congress, you continue to get paid even if there's a shutdown.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right. And for those that don't know, this is actually not something that we cannot not do, and that means that we have to pay the congressman. That is a requirement. But I think that if it wasn't that way, that we wouldn't have a shutdown this long. I
Hmm.
guarantee. So let's not call it a failure. Let's call it something else. Let's say that this is not. I'm gonna have to find the right word. I don't want to call it a failure.
Hitting.
I want
Yeah.
a lack of. Let's call it quite selfish. Let's just say that because we both know that in the Senate that the Democrats they want things right, but
Hmm.
the reality be is that this is a clean resolution. This should have been resolved already. Um, what I think is unfortunate is, like I said, we have people out there who are not getting paid. So it's what, been almost 30 something days.
I think 35, 36.
I mean, if you don't have a savings, you lapse on that mortgage, on that car payment. Some people might start making decisions to put food on the table, like we talked about earlier, before doing those things. Um, that that is, in my personal opinion, it upsets me. It upsets me that the fact that we're putting politics before our people. That's not something you would see me do. I'll tell you right now, if I was there now, obviously I would be in Congress and I would support the continued resolution. I would be making phone calls right now to Senator Padilla, to anybody on the other side that represents the Central Valley, to talk to them respectfully and understand. I'm sure that they have their position, but continue that dialogue. Because if we don't continue that dialogue, this could be 35, 40 days. Then what? Um,
Mhm.
what could happen? And I think that it's upsetting. So that's something that, in my personal opinion, that's happening now in real time. That I would be fighting and advocating for to make sure that we. And it's not just me, obviously. I would be only one congressman, but we have to change how we do business. You should not be getting paid if you have a lack of confidence in allowing the government to continue to be open. You should not be getting paid. And I would say that to everybody here, that I would say I would not accept that payment. I think it's
Yeah,
wrong.
I think what people fail to see is that these have real consequences.
Yeah,
People don't have the luxury of having savings like we were talking about, and there's real people suffering because of this. And
yeah,
it is very selfish and heartless, I would even say, because they don't realize the suffering that they're causing. Um,
right.
just like you said, just to hold the line, whatever the party wants to do. Uh,
Mhm.
I,
It always goes back to that somehow.
I think
always,
if and I'm only saying this because based on what I've seen, if it was a common sense proposal, even though it is a continued resolution, there wouldn't be a battle or debate, right? There would be some dialogue. But I think that what they're requesting doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. It just does not. So we need to open up the government, and we need to do it now.
Yeah. No. Well, we'll see what they figure out because talk about being selfish. I don't think we should pay taxes if the government's closed, but that's just me.
Salud.
But just for your district, my question would be, from your point of view, what's the biggest need for your district, and once God willing, you're elected into Congress, how would you go about trying to address that need?
For one, it would be water solutions, water storage,
Mhm.
paying for the infrastructure for that. That would be a top priority, especially for farmers, which trickles down, right? Trickle down economics. We talk about that, and we have the right water resources, no more red tape. It gives the ability for those farmers to continue to produce. No outsourcing, right? We won't have to have purchase product from outside of California. We'll be producing that product. And then, like we just mentioned, we'll touch on the subject of law enforcement. Those are very important to continue to support those small cities that are lacking in funding, that need funding. I mean, it it goes a long way to fund 1 to 5 officers. Uh, we can also talk about how important our economy is. We need to create jobs. Central Valley is we a lot of us drive outside of the Central Valley to work. We understand that.
Mhm.
So that means that we have a lot of congestion on our freeways. State of California is a little bit indifferent on how they feel that we should have our freeways here in the Central Valley. We're not LA or San Francisco. We need to widen our freeways. Um, so infrastructure for that. Also understand that when we talk about jobs, that means that we need to support not only big businesses but also small businesses so they can employ more people. And
Mhm.
and also we need to make sure that we we support and fund for the future. Our kids are our future. So we need to make sure that we continue to support youth programs for our community. And like I said earlier, I'm a coach, and I've seen firsthand a lot of these students that they struggle to get funding for their college, and they have a lot of these kids do have a grade point average, but not everybody comes from money, so they have to go out and seek these grants and apply for these different opportunities. I think that those are some of the priorities that I will be bringing, but that's not to say that when a small city or a large city or anybody of that or an organization comes to me with issues that I have that need to be addressed that I may not know nothing about, that I wouldn't be open minded either. So I don't want to be closed minded in saying that. I want to make sure that people understand that for me, in order to me to make good decisions, I need to be informed on issues that are happening in your community. If I don't know what's happening in your community, I won't be able to make a decision to help you. So I would open that and encourage anyone who is from an organization or city, if I am in Congress, to reach out to me so that we can make these things happen. And we need to stop kicking the can down the road. Uh, we need to stop allowing these issues to brew and going from water to farmers, to farm laborers, to work. That will boost our economy. We need to continue to do that. Central Valley, once again, I'll keep on saying it to everybody till I'm blue in the face. We feed the world. If we are not here, then we will have bigger issues on our hands. And we need to make sure that we support everyone here in the Central Valley in doing so.
No, that's great. Everything that you hit on is, being a Stocktonian now. I used to say that I'm not from Stockton, but I've been here, over 20 years now. So I'm officially a Stocktonian. Is that everything that you just described is exactly what I've seen. So if we have that type of representation here, I know it would benefit, the Central Valley. The other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that the Central Valley is growing tremendously.
Oh,
We talked
absolutely.
about it before we got on air, so it's about being proactive too. It's we you talked about the people commuting out to the Bay Area and different parts, maybe Sacramento or wherever the case
Right.
may be, um, is we need to create jobs so that people don't have to do that. It doesn't seem like it's sustainable. I mean, population out there is already growing as it is. Our population's growing. We need some clear direction moving forward. So, what is it that you want to tell everybody out there that Javier Lopez it represents and is going to do your vision and what you're going to bring to the table that we didn't talk about yet?
So you touched on a good subject. We have companies that have been here in the Central Valley for a very long time who are doing just that, what you just said. They are expanding their companies. They need resources, and they are creating jobs. Okay, and we're seeing it in the city of Ceres. We're seeing it in Modesto. We're seeing it in Stanislaus County. We're seeing it in Merced. We're seeing it in all these communities. I think we've realized that there is a lot of planning that goes behind that. But it will all come down to how can we help these businesses cut the red tape, get funding so that way they can hire people, so that way they have good paying jobs, and that way those same people with good paying jobs will spend and grow our economy. It's something that it's a domino effect, and we need to be able to support those. So I would say to big businesses that I am here to support you in any which way and capacity. Small businesses as well, as we do have other organizations that do help fund small businesses that also employ people, and that way we can be successful. The one thing I did not touch on is housing and affordability, right? So if you have more jobs in the Central Valley, if you have more opportunities, and even though we do see people come from the Bay Area that are calling our community home, to purchase homes here in the Central Valley, we have a project. We actually have several projects in series, but one particular project where we're getting ready to begin that process is to provide closer to 2,000 plus homes, and that will also help with the local schools, right? And more families means more school enrollment, which means job seekers, which means opportunities, which means those people who are spending money in our community. We need to have all those things happen in our community. and we need to have the representation, such like myself, who understands that and deals with it on a local level, that will prioritize these things for our community. So you hit it right on the money, and I'm sure that I know that you told me earlier that you work for a specific company, and they are expanding, and that's in that company at some point or other needs loans, right? Some point or another needs business resources, right? That business resources that come from either SBDC or come from the local community, that come from the chambers of commerce, like the Latino Chamber of Commerce, for example. We all need to work together. I think at the end of the day, if we want to talk about community, um, everybody should be engaged. It doesn't make a difference if it's one small little thing that you do. If you're, for example, a mentor, if you're a coach, if you're a business owner that is giving people opportunities to work for their business, a teacher, someone who understands the importance of community, because we cannot do it without people. Let's just remember that.
Yeah.
Without people, without people, there is no government. There is no people that are, like, for example, going back to the government shutdown. Those are real people with real jobs, and unfortunately, they're being told that they're not getting a paycheck. So those are the priorities that are very important to myself. And I know that we can talk about this all day long, but it's important, especially coming from the heart. I think that it's important, and I see it every single day.
Yeah, no, no. That I think for people tuning in that are in your district, if they're able to hear this, they see your intentions, right? And from this hour of talking to you, it really does sound like your community, the area you're trying to represent, and what they need. So you know we hope that like I said, people from your district are able to hear you out. And I we always encourage and hope for debates between candidates so that people can hear from all their options at once. um we try to encourage candidates from the other party to come on, but you know we've only had luck with one so far. uh but again, it's not about party for us. It's what are you going to do to represent the people, and what are your intentions, right? And again, from talking to you in this hour, it seems like you have some genuine intentions for the people you're trying to represent. So we do appreciate that.
Oh, thank you very much. And, also understanding that there has to be strong leadership too, especially in tough moments and tough times. And I know that I've had plenty, we've had plenty here in series, and we have to keep on pushing forward. And if you truly believe in the future of this country, we have to not give up. We have to be willing to work together. We also have to understand that there is specific powers that be, that maybe don't want to see that. But you know, take it one quarter at a time, one play at a time, and in the
Mhm.
end, when the game is over and you're victorious, we get to celebrate.
Yep, I agree.
We talk about that all the time. It's a battle of inches,
Yeah.
increments moving forward, not backwards. So,
Could I
um,
give, could I give a quick shout out?
yeah,
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
in the city of Ceres, since I've been here, we've had a long tradition of a crosstown showdown. I believe in 2022, 23, we created the Crosstown Showdown Parade. And it's been back and forth from both high school, Ceres High, and Central Valley. In this last Crosstown Showdown Parade, excuse me, game, which I coached Central Valley High School, we had a big sweep, freshman, JV, and varsity, and we took the
that's
trophy. Yes. And I will tell you this, and yes, I'm still the mayor of every citizen in the city of Ceres. Them boys at Ceres High, they fought hard. Um,
Nice.
but
Get
but
out.
the winner gets the trophy, and we will be seeing them at Monday's city council meeting, because my vice mayor and my other council member lost a bet, and they will be wearing green. And I got some Kleenex for them, and some clothes to wear. So just to show you that that's how important our community is and how important football is. And I got to give a shout out to all the players and the coaches and the school district and the city of Sirius for always supporting this game. And not to mention, on top of that, this Saturday we're going to be at the Series Music Festival. So if you guys are in the area, Milli Vanilli, Lighter Shade of Brown, they're going to have an EDM section, and they're going to have a bunch of food courts. It's going to be a fun family event. And these are the kind of things that we do in series, and we care about the community. And these are kind of things that I'm sure that we see, as I've seen as I traveled up and down the Central Valley, different communities that they have, their traditions. I think
Mhm.
that all seems to be a big thing in Central Valley, right? Uh,
Mhm.
Sports in general.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to give that huge plug out to them because they
So,
deserve it. And I'm a proud coach, also a proud mayor of our community, and I live and breathe this stuff. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to give a shout out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, thank you, Javier. It was a pleasure. Look forward to talking to you in the future.
Yeah.
We're neighbors,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
uh,
Well, we'll have to invite him to like the next carne asada or something then.
Oh yeah. I'm making Chile.
All right.
I want you to lose the Latino card. I hope you like Chile.
hey, I joke around and I would go, just give me the spiciest salsa that you have, and they look at me, they're like, "You sure?" I'm like, "I'm sure. If it's lava, even better."
Exactly.
All right, guys. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. Check out Javier. You can find his website at Javier for Congress. All words, no numbers. Javier FOR Congress, and you can check him out. Donate, whatever
Yes,
you
we.
feel, uh, to help him
Absolutely.
out or spread the word about him. And we thank you for coming on and sharing your thoughts on your district, and we appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Hopefully, I can earn everyone's vote, and this campaign is moving forward post Prop 50. And little cheap ploy here, but yes, it does take money to win this congressional race. Every dollar counts. I don't. It doesn't make a difference if it's $1, $5. Help this campaign so we can go ahead and take this seat back, and because this is our valley.
Hmm. Exactly. Cool. All right, everybody. Well,
Thank
peace
you.
be with you.
God bless.
Peace be.
Peace.